I know you're probably saying, Betty, where were you? I told you Wednesday was going to be a little funky, didn't I? I told you guys it was going to be a little funky because it was going to be cold. And I don't do well. I don't know if you guys know much about Bullhorn Betty. I don't do well in the cold. No, not me. So I like to snuggle up in bed and watch TV and do a whole bunch of nothing. But you guys know I never really do nothing. I'm always working, even when I'm watching TV. And leisurely having a day in the freaking freezing cold weather here in the beautiful state of sunny, cold Florida. Okay, and I always have this philosophy: if I'm freezing in Florida, the whole rest of the United States is like Arctic freeze weather. I want to say something like that. You know, it sounds like you guys might be. Don't be messing with Betty. Sorry, I love these soft mints. These things are the best, aren't they? Don't mind me being rude. And it's not even a fresh in my breath either. It's just, I like these darn things. Oh, good gracious. Oh, good gracious. All right, guys. It's nice to see you. I'm Bullhorn Betty. We cover true crime. I know you're not here to learn about my mint issue. I understand it. I understand it. You guys are here because we have been taking a deep dive into the Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. Before we get started, folks, there are a few things that we need to go over. And this is going to be a lengthy live. We plugged more interviews in. Shockingly enough, we got something to tell you. Well, something happening over here. Oh my gosh. Makes me wonder what the hell is going on in Hendersonville, Tennessee. I'm just saying. But before we get there, Camilla, almost 19-year-old girl, beautiful girl, wakes up the day before Christmas, walks away from her home, usually takes morning walks, nothing to be concerned about, and bada bing, bada boom, she doesn't return home. Mom gets a little concerned. Mom calls, law enforcement, says, my daughter hasn't returned. They open up a missing person case. They call, her family. What we didn't know is that there was also a firearm missing. Very sad. We started learning about day 2 or day 3, I believe, is when we started hearing the mental health. They started really driving the mental health stuff. And I'm like, shoot. This does make sense with everything that we're seeing. This makes sense. I said, we're going to probably be heartbroken, but it's not going to be, what we think it is. We were kind of thinking stranger danger. This is Texas. We just had, several cases of young, beautiful girls like her getting snatched up, unalived, and tossed away like garbage. This is not the first time that we heard that in Texas. So this could have really went both ways. But one of the driving forces for me that says, let's not so quick. Not so quick. It was the phone. It was the phone on the bed. We take, those types of things. We have to analyze, right? And we know that kids don't leave their phones at home. Not this day and age, okay? Once upon a time, maybe, but not this day and age. So the sad news is that a body matching her description was found prior to me coming live here today, a few hours ago. It is officially identified as her, and it was officially ruled a suicide. So this is going to be kind of where we kind of break just for a second, and we're going to just let everybody know if you are struggling with any type of depression, there is national hotlines. I know that there will be a moderator, if I can speak, a moderator that drops a phone number down into chat. If you guys are struggling, I'm going to ask you to please reach out. We all survive our worst days. I can tell you I'm here. I've had a lot of bad days, okay? A lot of days that I thought I wasn't going to make it, and here I am, right? Don't allow something temporary to become a permanent solution. So we really want to take care. If you're struggling, you don't have to let people know you're struggling here. You know, but you need to let somebody know. Okay? You don't need to be putting your business out there to be wielded against you on social media, but you need to speak to someone. So this is where we're going to stop and just say, if you are having issues, please reach out for help. Okay? A lot of people have struggles, and it's okay. You're not alone. And sometimes people need to know that they're not alone. So, of course, there's more fraud around the nation. We're going to be turning a spotlight onto that here. Let me get over to that real quick, and then we're going to get into our talk for today. This is going to be related to Sebastian Waindrake Rogers. However, we're going to take a few moments. If I can figure out which one I need to be on. There we go. Take a few moments to see this post from Benny Johnson. We've also been covering, not only have we been covering Camilla, we've also been covering the fraud out of Minnesota. Well, we're realizing, and I've told you guys, that this is not just happening in Minnesota. We're now uncovering some stuff going on in Ohio. This is another one coming out of Washington State. This is a very, very widespread, nationwide issue. Okay, this is going on in your backyard. It's going on in my backyard. I guarantee it is going on in all 50 of our United States. So we're going to actually be setting up a live. I'm going to be doing some work on trying to figure out how we identify these things, how to uncover them, and how to report them. And we are going to actually do a live on this show to educate all the people out there in our audience. So in your own community, as you're driving, you're just being a little bit better, educated, so you can identify things in your normal day. If you see something, obviously say something. It never hurts if a legitimate business has a report against them and somebody shows up. A legitimate business doesn't mind proving that they're a legitimate business, okay? So never ever fret. But I think this is so widespread, we need to get it under control. We have to remember, folks, this is the funds that we're going to need when we turn 65, when we get on insurance, when we need Medicaid or Medicare or things like that. You got to remember, these are funds that we're going to need to use at some point. We can't have people robbing them blind, okay? So I will set up a live over the next week or two. I've got to do some deep dive. Delilah, thank you. I've got to do some deep diving and figure out how do we identify them, where you'd look for information and stuff like that, because I know I got a bunch of little investigators in my chat, and we want to utilize you guys to help find fraud. Okay, and lastly, before we dive into the Sebastian Rogers case, I want to give a big shout out to Hindsight. Today, I found out, doing my research and plugging in additional interviews, that Duchess, which is always suspect when things start disappearing and are getting whitewashed off of her channel, the second interview she did with Chris and Katie Proudfoot, which of course had some changes, some significant changes in their statement, well, she's privatized that. There's no purpose for her to privatize any, of course she can. It's hers, right? It's hers. She can privatize what, I've got it. Okay. And again, big shout out to Hindsight. We're going to figure out how to put that back out there for everybody so nobody is missing. She can turn it on if she'd like. But we're not going to allow a major change in conversation be washed off of her channel as if she's being complicit in a cover-up. Okay. But we don't really care for Dutchie. We know she's two-faced. We know she's not real true crime. And she's all about the moments. I don't even know why she does what she does, right? She says it's to bring attention to her, to these cases. She doesn't really, she's been on here longer than I have, and her numbers suck. So where is she really moving the needle? I just don't get it. It seems like she's part of the hate squad that profited off. Remember, they were always raising money money for blip boards and stuff like that, you know? I keep wondering, because these are the first people that scream con or grift or what, and it always makes me wonder what's their grift, right? Because before I came out here, I never knew that people in true crime would be dishonest. And my first case was Summer Wells, where somebody conned an entire family out of $20,000 for blip boards. It was insane. And people did that. It was insane. It was insane. Anyways, so a big shout out to Hindsight. She was the one that had the second interview with Chris and Katie on her TikTok, and she was able to quickly give those to me. Unfortunately for this show, even though this happened before Chronicles of Olivia's interview, I was not able to get the transcript. I have since uploaded it to my system, but it takes a little while for an hour interview to transcribe. So for tonight's conversation, we're not going to have the Dutch's second interview. Okay. But what we do have is we have the first interview from Dutch's on March 3rd. We have the WSMV interview on March 4th, which we went over quite a bit of that yesterday. I've got some key factors just to refresh the people that are coming in tonight. And then we've got the Fox 17, or what is dubbed the Hands interview. We've got that, and we've got the Chronicles of, and that happened on 3/7. And then we've got the Chronicles of Olivia interview of 3/18. The next interview behind the Hands interview was the second Dutch's interview. So you can see how detrimental this portion is without that transcript. But again, big shout out to Hindsight. Although we can't do anything for this particular show, we will have it. We will be able to have it transcribed, and we will be able to plug it in, and we will be able to get the chart needed to find out what the major changes in that interview was as well. But we have this huge chart here. I know it's small print, so you guys are going to have to bear with me. We've got a lot to go over. Okay, a lot. And I know you guys are very, very eager to find this information. I would be. I wish we did this 2 years ago, you know, when we had an opportunity, as these things were being done, all of the interviews, even the ones on the hate channels that Chris did, those are going to be very interesting once we plug those in as well. You know, it's just gonna. I think the assessment's gonna be off the chart once all the work is completed. I really do. I really do. So before we get back here, I just wanted to mention the red flag that I saw today with the Dutch's interview, the second interview missing. It was privatized. There's no reason to privatize it. So my question is, why? Why would she intentionally go in there and privatize an interview, a second interview with these parents? So it makes me wonder, why is she hiding information? Because I would have to say the only reason why she would remove this or privatize it is if the parents asked her to. So why is she being a complicit in removing this? Oh, and by the way, before we get started, Happy New Year, guys. We have so many people in chat right now. We have 276 people in our horizontal view. We got 67 people in our vertical view. I want to say hi to all of you. This is just going to recap. I'm not going to be able to say hi to you guys individually because we have over 300 people already in chat right now. But I do want to tell you, I do appreciate each and every one of you. I will read the fan funding. We have You Rock, Never Quit. Oh, thank you. I got to give you a little heart. And then it pops you off. So we'll give you a little heart. Let Them 66. Oh, my hero. I love it. Cynthia saying, Happy New Year's. And all of you guys, Happy New Year. I know that this is, we're going to be sliding in. I'm going to try to keep this under 2 hours. There's so much information, guys, but it's so stinking good. Like, it really clarifies a lot of stuff for me. One of the key takeaways, I think the bombshell takeaways yesterday in all of the stuff, the two interviews that we compared for me, was the fact that Chris wasn't the one using past tense in those two first interviews. He wasn't identifying Sebastian in any past tense. His past tense was very, very low, stuff he was thinking about from years ago, which would have been in the past. The person that was using the past tense the most in both of those interviews was Katie Proudfoot. That was one of the most, that was one of the key takeaways for me that I got. Now, there were quite a few. There were quite a few. For example, let's just go over just a few of them. Some of them were the couch stuff, the specific time, the 10 p.m. couch, midnight bed, midnight bed, disappear in interview 2. Subsequent remains were with vaguer timing, which reduces how tight the window can be mapped. So, for example, she was very specific in interview 1, but in interview 2, she gives her some wiggle room. She's more vague in interview 2, where in many of the instances, we actually found out that she was less vague, that she actually tightened up a lot of the information in interview 2. So when we start seeing them loosening the information, it makes you wonder why, because more vague they are, as we learned from the deception detective, the more that they have to move around with their story. When she woke him up for school, this is another one. It adds concrete wake-up time in interview 2 around 6 p.m. and tightens up that morning timeline where she really told him that she woke him up in the morning for school in Dutchess, but specifically and specifies the 6 a.m. by the WSMV. Another example of them tightening up the timeline, not loosening it like they did with the whole event the night before. Oh, thank you, Pussy Willow Pendercat. It's nice to see you. Army Vet, Crystal Pistol, Sue, Debbie, it's nice to see you. If you guys have not hit the thumbs up button, please put your DNA. You never know, you might go missing. And Bullhorn Betty and Clan have to come find you. We need the DNA to match to that. So go out there and put your DNA on that thumb. We need your thumbprint, babes. We need your thumbprint. Pebbles, it's nice to see you. Tammy, Be Betty fan, it's nice to see you. Hello, loves. Claudia, it's nice to see you. Pussy Willow Pendercat says, I love you so much. I'm truly your very first fan. I'm truly your very, very first fan. We'll give you a... Oh, wrong one. We'll give you a big... Thank you, guys. Nero, it's nice to see you. I'm going to say hi to you guys when you guys come up in the chat. Army Vet, I think that's going to be the easiest. And people that are in the vertical chat, it's nice to see you, Jane. Maria, you guys, there's about 60 of you guys in the vertical chat. How you guys can tell if you're in the vertical chat versus the horizontal, the information that you're seeing on the screen is above my head in the vertical chat. If you are in the horizontal chat, you will see it over here to my left. Hopefully it's left to you guys. It's right to me, but left to you. So whatever. Okay. So just to let you know, hey, Cinderella, it's nice to see you. I'm not monitoring too much of the vertical chat, but I will pop in and out over there with your comments. So just FYI, we are monitoring it. Now, the other thing that was interesting was this whole initial search inside the house. This has become kind of a focal point here because in the first duration, she's saying that, she searched around the house, closets, all this, but then you hear her say she searched for 3 minutes. So that's been kind of a mismatch, mismatched. And an order is consistent, Katie, Chris, Sheriff, with how, the progression came that morning, who called whom. It seems like Katie called Chris called the sheriff. However, by the second interview, she states, we called. So there's something with that. The law enforcement arrival, we're going to be getting into that 10 minutes. That 10 minutes is going to be pivotal when discussing then, and what items were missing, in interview 1, nothing it was missing except possibly a flashlight. In interview 2, omits this detail entirely with notable gaps. Anyone analyzing what he could realistically have with him. So 1, it's saying possibly a flashlight. By the second interview, nothing is indicated that's potentially missing in this situation. So that's just kind of a recap from yesterday. So very, very good. If you guys did not have a chance to watch that, I absolutely recommend that you watch that. All right, guys, we're going to be going over this chart right here. Now, I'm not going to be going over the videos with you. Okay, I think at this point we need to have a conversation, because I think many of you, I could be wrong, but I do believe that many of you have already seen all these interviews. Okay, so let me tell you which interviews we are going to be going over. Put in the chat by 1s and 2s if you so choose. If you've seen these interviews. Okay, Duchess is the very first interview. Duchess, the 3-3 interview. We have the 3-3 interview. That's Duchess. Then is the green shirt interview. Then is the hands interview. And then is Chronicles of Olivia. Have you all seen those? The one that's missing out of this lineup is Duchess' second interview. But like I said, she removed it. So we had to hunt for it. We found it. I've uploaded it, and I'm trying to derive a transcript from it now to plug into the system, okay? But we don't have that one. But for the most part, now I know all of you guys haven't, but for the most part, hopefully the majority of you guys have. Perfect. Hey, Cinderella, I see you there. Darren, it's nice to see you. Maria, I think I said hi to you too. Okay, perfect. So we're going to assume now, if you don't know, you can always reach out to me at bullhornbetty@gmail.com. I'm happy to share you the links. Maybe somebody in here is following along and has those links that can share with you. But we're going to go over all of the information from point. There are several areas here, okay? So the elements, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11... So it looks like we've come up with 11 areas of concern, okay? Some are in varying degrees. Some very minor, won't mean a whole lot, and some that are a little more significant, okay? So we're going to go down them all, and I think that this is going to provide us the most clarity. Hey, Perry, it's nice to see you. And Gina did receive her shirt. So we want to say, I am so glad you received your shirt. If you guys know, every now and again, we give away shirts on here. And usually we put a whole bunch of people in a wheel and spin and, digital wheel. And a name pops out, and that usually is who ultimately is the winner. Most of the time, you guys are required to be in chat to get the item. But when it's a special event, sometimes because of fairness, we opt just to go ahead and pull a name, and whoever it is has, XYZ days to reach out to Sonia, or we call another name. So, hey, Adrian, it's nice to see you. Gigi, Pebbles, Linda, Tammy, it's nice to see you. Hey. All right. So let's go over this methodically. Let's talk about, let me give you guys the Reader's Digest version. Okay. So if you guys don't know, Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers disappeared from inside his locked home in Hendersonville, Tennessee, off of Stafford Court. He went inside his home allegedly on Sunday, February 25th, and when his mother awoke around 6 a.m. on February 26th, Monday, he was not in his bed. According to his mother, she looked around the house before calling his stepfather. She reached out to the stepfather. The stepfather ultimately called law enforcement, and the cavalry showed up. After exhaustive and extensive efforts that had covered more than 2,000 acres, 5 miles in total radius searched, and nothing found Sebastian. But one of the most notable of the search is the fact that no scent of Sebastian was ever found outside of that home. And why is this so significant is because, according to his mother and his stepfather, and then also learned by his dad, Seth, is that he left without shoes. As many of you guys know, kids that are autistic have things that they like and dislike. One thing about Sebastian is he was autistic and he had a chromosome deletion syndrome. He was allergic to grass. He did not like dirt. He hated bugs, and he always wore his socks and shoes when he left the house. So to hear that he left the house in the middle of the night without socks and shoes is very highly unlikely, especially for an autistic child. However, that was the story that we were provided. And according to that story, there should have been plenty of scent on the ground, on the sidewalk, on the roadway of Sebastian Rogers for a ground disturbance dog or a scent-specific dog. Yet nobody could find a scent of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. Now, it's been almost 2 years, and every single person that has been called in that looked like Sebastian has been cleared. Sebastian has never been found, and there's never been a legitimate sighting of Sebastian since he disappeared in his mother's custody. Now, there are a few things to notate in this story, is that he was assaulted as a young kid by an older kid, and that happened under his mother's watch as well. He was 8 years old at the time, and it happened in California. Another ironic tidbit of information, Katie and Seth were married 8 years. Katie filed for divorce from Seth on February 26, 2016, exactly 8 years before this child disappeared, and disappeared for forever. A couple things that were found out through our work is that there were neighbors that heard Chris tell Katie it's either him or her son, and she needed to choose that, and he never came back to the house after leaving. And the next time he was back in that home was after Sebastian disappeared. So that is kind of the story in a nutshell. If you'd like more detailed information, we do have a playlist here on the Bullhorn Betty channel that you can go and review. We also have Bullhorn Betty Crime Stories, where we also covered a lot of different nuances, as well as our TikTok. We've got a lot of information on the Sebastian Rogers case. So now we're going to kind of break down these interviews and see where the true inconsistencies or information changes or impacts these make from interview to interview. We've been hearing some nuances. We've been hearing some inconsistencies, but are our inconsistencies truly inconsistencies, or are they just a change of emotion, change of perspective, but not really inconsistent or a flat out lie? And so now that we are kind of advancing into AI, I decided to build a system where I'm just plugging in just interviews. I'm taking the transcripts, feeding it into the system, and asking the system just some basic questions. And some of those questions are related to what how many past tenses were used in this interview, how many inconsistencies are there, and when did Chris or Katie contradict themselves or each other. Those were the 3 parameters pretty much that I'm kind of living in right now. And then, of course, today we're going to throw in a little bit of statistics at the end of the show. So for the overall day, in the Duchess 3-3 interview, the host is summarizing Katie. He was having a good day. He had had a great weekend. In the WSMV video, Katie was the one that referred to them being out and about that day, and we were having a really good weekend. Now, over in the Fox Hands video, Katie refers to Sunday, we were out and about. We had a really good day, doing our thing, running around. We had dinner that evening, pretty good evening together as well. And then, of course, we come over to the Chronicles of Olivia interview of 318, and her statement about this same area is stated Sunday, we got up, made breakfast, we had a good time, we were laughing, we were joking. He talked to family on the phone. We went and picked up our niece, went to BJ's, the bowling alley, then dinner. Story of a good day and good weekend is stable, but Olivia's adds the most detailed itinerary. Breakfast, niece, BJ's, bowling, dinner, trash. The more detail, the more chances for future conflicts if witnesses disagree. So we need to realize that, okay? So where everything was really stable, but then you get to the 318. Now remember, what is different in 318 that was not different, that had not changed anything from the 3-3, 3-4, and 3-7 interview? The only difference in this area of time, in my opinion, was when Nick Barris had released the lights video, and we learned about the car parked on Stafford and Kellen. That happened on 314. And so the 317 and 318 interviews are very crucial because it happened after the reports of the lights. So that was the difference there. So we need to pay really close attention. Why was there so much more detail in the Chronicles of Olivia? And we haven't plugged in the 317 interview with Duchess the day before because it was missing. So we'll find that out. Tomorrow we'll have the answer on the second interview for Duchess. So now we're going to be talking specifically about the evening activities before bed, okay? Are you guys following so far? Is this beneficial to you? Do you guys think that this is beneficial, breaking this very specific areas? Now, again, if you would like to see where the timelines are and stuff like that and do your own work, all you have to do is reach out to me, and I'm happy to provide you all of this information. You can reach out to bullhornbetty@gmail.com, bullhornbetty@gmail.com, and I'm perfectly happy to provide you with the charts and my information. I was going to put it up on something and share the link for it, but, to be honest with you, I don't know how to do all that. I'm not, I know you guys think I'm really, really techie, but I'm not as techie. I know there's better ways of doing things than the way I'm doing it. And maybe I'll get with Hindsight. She seems to be like top notch on, I reached out to her today and she's like, boom, 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 boom. I'm like, oh, damn. How is she doing that? How is she doing that? I know, honey. I know. You're hearing me and you're excited. I love you. Go find something. It's dark in there. I might have to go in the living. Hold on, guys. Let me go turn the light on in the living room so she can see. Give me just a second. Delilah, I can't play with you, honey. I'm sorry. I don't think she wanted anything. The lights were on in the living room. I think she wants me to play. So I threw her some treats on the floor. Hopefully that distracts her for a little bit, at least for a couple hours. Okay. So now we're moving to the activities before bed. If you guys are thinking that this is helping you, put a 1 in the chat. Let me know that this stuff is beneficial, and this chart, just bringing it straight across. So in the Duchess 3-3 interview, Katie states, after supper, he was playing. When he went to bed, he had even said, I love you, mama. I love you, puppies. This is important. Perfect, guys. Perfect. This is important because I know a lot of us stayed in this area for a while, with the slight inconsistencies with these statements. But I don't think they're as inconsistent as many people were suggesting that they were. In the 3-4 interview, It says, we got home. He was playing in his room, and I told him to go to bed, and he did. The 3/7 Fox or Hands interview, he says he was playing right up to bedtime and then some, and I let him stay up a little bit late. Now, this is a problem for me because that is a major, in my opinion, a major change, but we'll get to the change and impact. And then, of course, going to the Chronicles of Olivia interview, Katie states, after dinner and trash, about 9 p.m. told him to go to bed, and he comes out of his room where he was playing and said, all right, good night, mama, good night, puppies, love you, and went to bed. All agree he was playing up until bed and said good night to mom and the dogs. Olivia and Fox 17 both emphasized him staying up a little late, fitting with a 9 p.m. bedtime. So he was up a little late, but was that a major inconsistency? And it's not really ringing as this major inconsistency according to the program. So now we're going to talk about Sebastian's bedtime, the clocked time, okay? Duchess 3-3, the host to Katie states, you said Sebastian went to bed at 9 p.m. In the WSMV 3-4 interview, no clock time was mentioned. She just said, I told him to go to bed, and he did. In the Fox 17 3-7 interview, Katie states, she let him stay up a little late. I told him to go to bed, and he did. No explicit 9 p.m., but implied later than usual. Now, Chronicles of Olivia, Katie says, about 9, I told him to go to bed. So 9 p.m. appears in Duchess and is confirmed explicitly in Olivia's. However, WSMV drops the time, and Fox 17 hints at a late but no hour. The pattern looks more of a media-driven compression than a change in the story, but on camera they avoid the exact time excerpt with Olivia. So they're picking up that on camera they're eliminating or omitting the time frame, which is pretty interesting. So last words. This is another one where we spent a lot of time. He even said, I love you, mama, and said, I love you, puppies. That was on Duchess 3-3. On WSMV 3-4, he said, good night, mama, I love you. Say good night to his puppies. That was WSMV. 3-7 Hands interview. When I told him to go to bed, he's like, I love you, mama. I love you, puppies. And he went to bed. In Chronicles of Olivia 3-18, all right, mama, good night, mama. Or excuse me, all right, good night, mama. Good night, puppies. I love you, and went to bed. And so they're picking up that this is extremely consistent wording across all 4 outlets. This is one of the most stable parts of Katie's accounts. This is bombshell, okay? Because we focused a lot, and I heard a lot of people from TikTok to YouTube focusing specifically on how the phrasing of the dogs and the good night went. And so to hear the system saying this is the most consistent of all the statements Katie states is this right here. So I thought that was fairly shocking. Fairly shocking. It's nice to see you. Don't be a jerk up in the chat. We block people. We block people. Don't make me bring out the troll. Whack a troll. We whack a troll around here. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. Where is it? Where is it? We're going to drop you on your head. Where are you? That'll show you. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. We welcome all trolls. We just don't like hearing your mouth. Just saying. Okay, so actually interesting, right? The most consistent, most stable part of Katie's account was this about the son. Now, noise from his room. This is another shocker, folks. This is another shocker for me. For me. Because it's very clear on its face now, right? The noise from his room that night. Check this out. Now, I want to remind you. Well, I'll have to wait. I don't want to give it away. So 3-3, no mention. 3-4, no mention. 3-7, no mention. 3-18, after the lights video, after almost him being gone a month, at least 3 weeks at this point, this young man has been gone 3 weeks, and now all of a sudden, a new detail. He was doing something in his room because about an hour later, I heard some noise. I was like, I don't care what you're doing in there, but go to sleep. You guys remember that? We learned of that 3/18. He disappeared on February 26th. This is interesting. Olivia is the only place where she now granted, I'm pretty sure that's why Duchess took the video down, the second video, because I think that's the first time she brings up the noise. And we're going to get that. We're going to get to that. We'll plug that in tomorrow when we get the transcript finalized. So, but anyways, Olivia's is the only place where she mentions hearing him an hour after 9 p.m. It's the only time we hear that in all of these interviews, and telling him to go to sleep. That effectively extends his last known alive date to 10 p.m., which is important for the timeline analysis and not present in the earlier media interviews. Why? Why? We don't know. This is a major question. Why? Why? And of course, we've spent a lot of time on when Katie went to bed. On the 3-3 Duchess, you fell asleep on the couch about 10 o'clock. And again, we just learned that this extends his alive to 10 p.m. How could she be hearing a noise, screaming at him, and falling asleep on the couch? Again, very inconsistent, but I need to shut up. This is not what's in the report. Let's just read the report. Duchess, you fell asleep on the couch at 10 p.m. 10 o'clock, rather. Then you went to bed, and you said that was around midnight. In the WSMV, Katie states, a little bit later, I wound up going to bed. In the Hands interview, 3/7, Katie says, I went to bed around midnight. Everything seemed fine. In the Chronicles of Olivia, 3/18, about midnight, I got up and I went to bed. So changes and impact of this statement across these 4 interviews. Midnight is consistent in Fox 17 and Olivia, and echo via host on Duchess. WSMV omits the time, making on-camera timeline less specific. Less specific. Wow, it's hard for me to say that for some reason. So very, very consistent on the later interviews, was echoed on the first interview, but specified the specific time in opening up the vagueness on the WSMV. Now, when she woke him up for school, this has also been interesting. Because in the Duchess interview, she states early in the morning to wake him up for school, and he's gone. No time. On the 3/4 interview, the green shirt, when I woke him up for school, he wasn't there. When do you normally wake him up? Around 6. In the Hands interview, When I went to wake him up for school, that's when I couldn't find him. He wasn't in his room. He wasn't in the house. And then on Chronicles of Olivia 3:18, she states, and 6, I went to wake him up for school Monday morning, and that's when he wasn't there. Olivia explicitly fixes it at 6 a.m., which WSMV had only as her normal time. Earlier interviews simply say morning. So it wasn't really confirmed until that later interview with Chronicles of Olivia. And then when we work on the initial, her initial search in the house, let's go over those comments. Guys, I'm not reading chat. I really do apologize. If we have any questions, let me see if we have any questions in chat form. So far, nothing. Thank you. And I forgot to hit Melanie and say, Happy New Year! Woohoo! Oh, that is hers. Oh, I missed hers. There, we got to put a heart there. Sorry, I missed you. Happy New Year, love. I hope you're doing well. So now let's go over that initial search. So what is the initial search? The initial search is after she wakes up and she realizes Sebastian is missing from the house. This is the search between the time she finds out he's missing to the time she calls Christopher Proudfoot. So Chris states in the 3-3 interview, he makes this statement. Mom made an effort to look and search several times. Okay, you hear that? Chris made the statement on behalf of Katie and said, Mom, referring to Katie, made an effort to look and search several times. In the 3-4 green shirt interview, Katie says, I took a second and walked through the house. About 3 minutes in, give or take, I was on the phone with my husband and I said, I can't find him. He's not in the house. On the hands interview, the 3-7 interview, Katie states, my very first reaction was, oh, he got up and got breakfast. When I realized actually he wasn't in the house, I've never experienced sheer panic. Then, first thing I did was call my husband. He stated, did you check here? I ran through the house. We 3-wayed police. And then, of course, the Chronicles of Olivia 3:18 interview. Katie states, I looked through the house for him, typical for him to get up and rummage for snacks. After I looked, all of this took place in like 1 minute flat. I ran through the house, looked out all the doors and windows, hollered his name. Then I picked up the phone and called my husband. I can't find our son. So there is a tightening and shortening over time. So in Dutchess, they refer to several times. In the WSMV, approximately 3 minutes. In a Chronicles of Olivia, like 1 minute flat. That drift makes her search window appear shorter and later interviews, which can fairly flag this as an evolution. So we're having very much some shrinkage here. Think about it. Why would you be trying to shrink this time? I think it's because it took them too long to call law enforcement. We flagged them as taking over 30 minutes before they made a call, despite interviews stating they called them immediately, which we found out not to be true. So that might have something to do with it. Just my opinion, not in the report. So that's just me literally telling you how I feel after reading that. Call sequence, Katie, Chris, and law enforcement, right? So 3-3 Dutchess, Chris states, Mom has called me. I made the phone call and reported it to the sheriff's department. Within 10 minutes, the sheriffs were dispatched. In the 3-4 green shirt, Katie states, about 3 minutes in, I was on the phone with my husband. Immediately after that, we called the sheriff's department and made the report. On the hands interview, or 3-7, Katie states, first thing I did was call my husband. We three-wayed the police. Within minutes, they were here. And then Chronicles of Olivia, Katie states, I picked up the phone and I called my husband. I can't find our son. I jumped in my car and I drove around the neighborhood and by the school. And he, referring to Chris, three-wayed law enforcement. Go back to the house. They're on the way, Chris states. So what does this mean? The core sequence. Katie calls Chris. Chris calls or three-ways law enforcement. Stays the same, but Olivia adds a new element. In Olivia's interview, Katie says she got in her car and drove around the neighborhood and by the school before law enforcement was called. That to me is pretty different, which is not mentioned in the earlier 3 interviews. That is a material addition to her timeline. That is a material addition to her timeline. And she adds it almost a month later. Law enforcement response time. So on Dutchess 3-3, within 10 minutes, the sheriffs were dispatched to the location. Green Shirt 3-4, within minutes, they were here. Rapid fire. They had cars down the main road. Hands 3-7, within minutes, they were here. I couldn't tell you exactly how long. I know it was fast. And Chronicles of Olivia 3:18. Go back to the house. They're on their way. Oh, they got something wrong here. 10 minutes later, they're there. They said something there. That's off. I don't know what that means. So earlier lives within 10 minutes, TV pieces within minutes, and then emphasizes felt fast. Olivia's doesn't give a number, minor softening in precision over time. So nothing really major with that one. What was the missing phone, shoes, flashlight? Okay. We're very unclear what was missing. So on Dutchess 3-3, he didn't take a phone. None of his shoes are missing. Katie states his favorite flashlight is missing, so likely that he took it. Okay. 3-4, there's no inventory of items. So on the Green Shirt interview, they say nothing about what he took with him or what he did not take with him. But by 3-7, the hands interview, who is that? Oh, Mama! Oh, you gifted 5 Bullhorn Betty memberships. If you received your 5 Bullhorn Betty memberships, please don't forget to tell Mom of 9.5. Thank you. God bless you, love. God bless you. We appreciate it. So, let me say it. Because I'm a love machine. And those that just received your gifted Bullhorn Betty membership, welcome to this crazy family we call the Coffee Club, i.e. the Insane Asylum. Grab your straitjacket in your padded room and welcome aboard. So law enforcement response time, within 10 minutes, we hear 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. So it sounds like minor softening or precision over time. What was missing? Chris states that the phone was missing and none of his shoes are missing. By the hands interview, he says, we checked for all of his shoes and none of them were missing. The doors were locked. Clothing to bed, black sweatpants and with white stripes and a long sleeve black shirt with printed front Star Wars, Halloween, or Minecraft. And then by Chronicles of Olivia, no inventory of phone, shoes, or flashlight in excerpts or portion They focus on her actions and feelings. So the phone, shoes, all at home is consistent where it appears. The flashlight detail only appears in the Duchess, not repeated in any of the live mainstream coverage. That omission matters because media consumers will not know that he may have a light source. Interesting. Interesting. And then lastly, the runner history. The history of elopement. How was that explained? So in the 3-3 Duchess, Duchess and Chris emphasize he does not have a history of running, very to himself and not a runner. 3-4 green shirt. My son doesn't run. He's not a runner. He's never run away before. Hands interview 3-7. He never done anything like that before. He's not a runner. This is not normal for him to run away. And of course, Chronicles of Olivia. He is not a child that wanders, does not have a history of being an eloper. He has no eloper. He has not been an eloper or a runner. This message is highly consistent across all interviews. He has no prior running or elopement. So key new contradictions in shifts revealed by the new interviews that we added as opposed to yesterday. Earlier, several searches Duchess and 3 minutes WSMV later in Olivia all took place in 1 minute flat. This is a self-contradiction in Katie's own estimation over time, trending downward from several times to 3 minutes to 1 minute. This matters if you're analyzing how long the house was unsecured before police involvement. Driving around before law enforcement call. On Duchess, Fox 17, and WSMV do not mention Katie ever leaving the house in her car before the police were contacted. In Olivia, Katie says after calling Chris, she jumped in her car and drove the neighborhood by the school. This is a new behavior inserted into the timeline about 2 weeks later and is a substantive change, not just wording. It's a huge change in her timeline. Last heard alive time. Only Olivia's includes the noise from the room about an hour later and her telling him to go to sleep, suggesting she heard him around 10 p.m. Earlier interviews imply his last interaction was at 9 p.m. when he said goodnight. This adds an extra hour to last known alive window and is another late added detail that wasn't in the first 3 interviews. Specific times: 9 p.m. bedtime, 6 a.m. wake-up time, fully explicit only in Olivia, with a piece that 9 p.m. via Duchess and around 6 p.m. WSMV appearing earlier. The mainstream TV hits WSMV and Fox 17 tend to blur or omit exact times, while long-form YouTube interviews restore them with added narrative and color. Past tense reference to Sebastian. These are the spots where Chris and Katie talk about Sebastian in the past tense. In context, they are usually describing events or habits before he vanished, not stating that he is deceased. Katie is the speaker. The timestamps is Duchess, 3-3. When he comes home, he was playing. He went to bed. He even said, "I love you, Mama. I love you, puppy." Event based on past, describing the night, not treating him as deceased. Many of them don't just treat these as deceased. Katie also stated in the WSMV, everything was pretty normal. He was playing in his room that morning. He was laughing, he was joking, he was in a good mood, he was behaving. Past tense was Sunday's behavior and mood. In the Fox 17 or Hands interview, We had a really good day. He was playing right up until bedtime. I let him stay up a little late. Again, specific day recap. In the Chronicles of Olivia, 318, Katie states, we had a good time. We were laughing. We were joking. That was one thing, has always been a blessing. He's not been an eloper or a runner. Overall, he's a pretty happy kid. A mix of past for that Sunday and has always been for history, still balanced with the present tense is, according to this. Chris states in the Duchess 3-3 interview that only friends that he had were a couple of kids in school. Past tense about pre-disappearance friends. I don't like that. On the Fox 17, he was happy. He loves games. He was always a character. He's a good kid. So it was a slide between past and present when describing personality, and I think many of you guys picked up on that, where he was jumping in and out of past and present. 2, self-partner contradictions, evolving story points. This table highlights where Katie and Chris contradict themselves, each other, or materially expand or soften details across interviews. This stuff is amazing to me. I'm going to tell you guys this right now. I love what we're doing with this thing. It's so crystal clear for me. So the topic is the length of Katie's search before calling Chris. In interview 1 on Duchess, Chris says mom made an effort and effort to look and search several times. In the WSMV, about 3 minutes, give or take. I was on the phone with my husband, Olivia, Katie. All it took place in like 1 minute flat. So Katie's own estimate shrinks over time, several minutes to 3 minutes to 1. That is a clear internal inconsistency and gives you a clean talking point on evolving search window. Very interesting. So that is a critical point we need to focus on. Why is she doing that? Why is she shrinking that overall action time? Whether Katie drove around before police were called. On the Duchess 3-3, the WSMV 3-4, in the Hands interview of 3-7, none mention her leaving the house in her car before law enforcement is contacted. Sequence is search, call Chris, call sheriff, deputies arrive. That's always been what it is. Now we have to remember that detail, especially since she was the only vehicle that left that house the entire time, from the time that child went to bed to the time he woke up that morning. She was the only one that drove the car out of that house. And she just subsequently omits that until well after the 3:14 lights video. So there is that. Well, it sounds like you, crazy bird. Olivia 318, Katie, after phoning Chris saying she can't find Sebastian, I jumped in my car. I drove around the neighborhood. I drove over by the school. I was hysterical. Chris, three-way law enforcement, he was like, go back to the house. They're on their way. The car search loop only appears in Olivia almost 3 weeks later. Either earlier TV hits omitted, or this isn't a late addition. In any case, the timeline presented to the public changes. You guys hear that? In any case, this timeline presented to the public changes. First 3 interviews, she stays home until police. Later, she leaves in her car before 911 is called, folks. We knew that, but hearing it like that really starts resonating, doesn't it? That she withheld leaving the house. They never talked about her leaving the house, not one time. And then boom, almost a month later, she's copping to the fact she left the house and saying she left the house to go search for her son. Well, it seems like why would she omit it in the first interviews. I don't know. It changes. Her first interview, she stays home until police and leaves in her car before contacting 911. That's concerning. That's concerning. So they're saying this is something we need to look at. Last known time hearing him alive. On Duchess 3-3, on the green shirt 3-4, on the hands 3-7, all frame the last interaction as the bedtime. I love you, mommy. I love you, puppies. Then Katie goes to bed around midnight. There was no mention of additional noise from his room. However, 3:18, Katie, after 9 p.m., good night, he's doing something in his room because about an hour later, I heard a noise and I was like, I don't care what you're doing in there, but go to sleep. Olivia adds a new 10 p.m. contact point that earlier interviews did not mention. That extends the last heard alive window by a full hour, and this is a significant late detail. Exact time, bed/wake up. In the 3-3 Duchess, you said Sebastian went to bed at 9 p.m. and you went to bed around midnight. WSMV 3-4, Katie usually wakes him up around 6 a.m., but no explicit 9 p.m. time. A little bit later, I wound up going to bed, she says. In the hands interview, Fox 17, the 3-7 interview, Katie states, I went to bed around midnight, but gives no clock for his bedtime or wake up. Olivia of 3:18, Katie states, around 9 I told him to go to bed. About midnight, I went to bed. 6 a.m., I wake up. I went to wake him up for school. The underlining times, 9, 12, 6, are actually consistent. And I think we pointed that out on this show multiple times. Those were always almost all the most consistent out of everything. The 9, 12, and 6. But the precision varies by venue. The YouTube long-form Olivia, the most detailed, the WSMV and Fox, which is the green shirt and the hands, under specified bedtime, wake up on camera. This more of a shift in public specificity than a flat-out contradiction. So they're saying that, yes, we're hearing these changes, but they're only subtle changes, and it sounds like it's more of verbiage than contradiction. Timeline of wake up and realizing he's gone. In the hands interview of 3-7, Katie wakes up, assumes he's getting breakfast, then realizes he wasn't in the house and panics. No specific duration mentioned. However, on the green shirt 3-4 interview, Katie says she walked through the house about 3 minutes, give or take. Then she calls Chris. On Olivia's 3:18, Katie says the entire internal search ran through the house, the whole house, looked out all the doors and windows, hollered his name, happening all in 1 minute flat. The internal pacing of her story tightening over time, that doesn't change the order of events, but it does affect how long the house may have been unsecured before police got involved. Who actually called law enforcement? This is interesting. Who actually called law enforcement? So according to Duchess 3-3, Chris states, Mom has called me. I made the phone call and reported it to the sheriff's department. In the in the green shirt interview, Katie states, immediately after, we called the sheriff's office. The hands interview 3-7, Katie states, we three-wayed the police. Within minutes, they were here. In Olivia's 3:18, Katie states, Chris three-wayed law enforcement while she was out driving. The functional reality is consistent. Chris initiates the contact with law enforcement, but different interviews shift emphasis between I made the call, Chris on Duchess, and we called three-way Katie on TV and Olivia. This is a framing inconsistency, not a factual one. So it's a framing inconsistency. They're framing this inaccurately. The absence of Katie's car search in Christopher's account. Duchess 3-3, Chris describes Katie calling him and searching in the house. No mention of her getting in the car and driving around before deputies are dispatched. On Olivia 3:18, Katie explicitly says she drove around the neighborhood by the school before Chris three-wayed law enforcement and told her to return. Chris's earlier public account omits any reference to Katie's car search, which later becomes part of Katie's narrative. That's a Katie versus Chris mismatch unless Chris now confirms that drive elsewhere. So that's an omission, but why? Being cleared by law enforcement. We've heard that from the beginning. Chris stated on Duchess 3-3. We've been vetted, checked out, literally have been cleared with no wrongdoing from the parents or of the family. 3-4, Chris softens that very specifically and removes that they've been cleared and basically says fully cooperated. Now, we've been cleared language appears only in Duchess, then later disappears from later mainstream interviews, replacing it with fully cooperative. That is a self-correction in tone and conflicts with Sumner County's public position that no one has been formally cleared. The ability to travel, navigate versus limits. 3-3, Duchess, Chris emphasized that Sebastian doesn't use social media or online gaming and is heavily restricted. City bus travels is theoretically possible, but they've never done it, and he doesn't understand money. Chris and Katie both speak on the WSMV green shirt, emphasizing his ability directionally. He can guide someone from their house to his father's house in Clarksville and a local spot like Culver's. They call it familiar routes, but say whether he could get a ride on a bus is speculation. No expanded on Fox or Olivia, and we learned that was a direct contradiction. Flashlight detail. We know that we heard about this flashlight in the Duchess 3-3. She says she has one and she can't find it, so it's likely he took it. However, in WSMV, the Hands interview, the green shirt interview, or Olivia's interview, none mention the flashlight at all in the night of the narration, the narrative that they drive. This omission is not a contradiction, but it's significant. Only the first long live mention suggesting he left with a light source. Later outlets leave that out, which narrows what casual viewers think he had with him. So, there's some contradictions here. Nothing that's like major. I mean, there are red flags here, but nothing that we're saying, this is earth-shattering information, right? There are some shocking details, like Katie being, Delilah, please go. No, hold on, guys. She's trying to get my attention. I don't know what she wants. She wants to just sit in my lap, I guess. She's been here like 5 times, and I've ignored her and shoot her away 5 times. She keeps coming back, so we're gonna let her stay here. Oh crap, we haven't even gone through this yet. I was putting something away that's important. So, So Act 1, the first version, Duchess 3-3. This kind of establishes the baseline, the story, and the tone. And Sebastian goes to bed around 9 p.m. after saying, "I love you, Mom. I love you, puppy." Katie falls asleep on the couch around 10 p.m., then goes to bed around midnight. Nothing seems unusual. She wakes up in the morning to get ready for school and discovers he is gone. Chris, Mom, search and call description. Chris states in this interview that Mom made efforts to look and searched several times. Mom has called me. I made the call and reported to the sheriff. Within 10 minutes, the sheriffs were dispatched. Items left behind. Chris states that Sebastian did not take his phone and none of his shoes were missing. Later in the live, Katie says that his favorite flashlight is missing, so it's likely that he took it. Key line for comparison is Chris on law enforcement. The parents have been vetted, checked, and literally have been cleared with no wrongdoing by the family. So we want to make it clear that a 9 midnight morning progression, multiple searches, phone call to Chris, and a strong "we've been clear" claim. And we will be circling back to the several searches, the flashlight, and the clear wording. So in account number 2, which is the TV spin, the WSMV, and the Fox 17, so your green shirt interview and your hands interview, repeats the good day framing. We were out that day and we're having a really good weekend. Bedtime. He was playing in his room. When I told him to go to bed, he did. He said, "Good night, Mom. I love you." Say good night to his puppies. Katie going to bed a little later and wound up going to bed. Morning discovery. She normally wakes up around 6. She walks the house, and after 3 minutes calls her husband. She can't find him. Law enforcement immediately after that. We called the sheriff. Within minutes, they were here. So the explicit 9 p.m. and midnight times from Dutchess are gone, replacing it with a little bit later and around 6. Search times is now qualified as 3 minutes, not several searches. The flashlight is never mentioned. And segment B, which is the hands interview, Sunday recap. We had a really good day. When he came home, he had a pretty good evening. He was playing right up to bedtime. We let him stay up a little bit late. Bedtime and night. The same, I love you, Mom, I love you, puppies. Katie went to bed around midnight. Everything seemed to be fine. The morning, she thinks he got up for breakfast. When she realizes he's not in the house, she experiences sheer panic. First thing she did was call her husband. We 3-wayed the police. Within minutes, they were here. Chris again confirms no shoes were missing and the doors were locked. The contrast points is Fox 17 restores midnight, but still no explicit 9 p.m. or 6 a.m. and still no flashlight. The call to the police is framed as we 3-wayed, softening Chris's earlier "I made the phone call" claim. There is still no mention of Katie getting in her car or driving around. So these pieces, the core narrative is consistent, but key details are blurred. The search times from several to 3 minutes to 1 minute. The explicit times, the 9, the 12, the 6 are fuzzier on the camera interviews. Flashlight and any car search are absent. It feels like the story is being smoothed for the TV, and it seems like we still haven't heard everything at this point. Now, account 3 is the Chronicles of Olivia interview. And as we know, this came down, like 2 to 3 weeks after the child went missing. The full Sunday itinerary, breakfast at home, phone calls with family, picking up niece, BJ, snack, colossal popcorn, bowling alley, dinner, taking out the trash to the end of the driveway. Bedtimes, about 9 p.m., told him to go to bed. Good night, Mama. Good night, puppies. I love you. The new 10 p.m. detail, about an hour later. I heard some noise. I don't care what you're doing in there, but go to sleep. Midnight, about midnight, I got up and I went to bed, she says. 6 a.m. 6 a.m., I went to wake him up for school, and that's when he wasn't here. So then the new morning sequence, Katie says she runs through the house, checks the doors, windows, yells his name. All of this took place in a minute flat. She calls Chris. He's not in the effing house. I can't find our son. So the new element added is I jumped in my car, I drove around the neighborhood, and I drove over by the school. I was hysterical. I was crying. I was screaming. Here is a key factor to notate. God bless the mob crew. God bless the mob crew. Because he has footage of Katie driving around that community. And the one thing that I can personally tell you that's not in this report, because I have not plugged it in yet to the system, is that I can tell you from my preview of Katie's behavior, she did not look hysterical. It did not appear her eyes were red, her face was swollen, or she was crying or screaming. As a matter of fact, we notated that her windows were completely rolled up. And everything that we could see, we could hardly even see that she was on the phone with Chris. We knew she was. But you didn't see anything. You didn't see anything. So that's, even though it's not in the report yet, we got to remember we did see photos of Katie right before this call was made to law enforcement. And she's saying, the new element, I jumped in my car. I drove around the neighborhood. I drove over by the school. I was hysterical. I was crying and I was screaming. These are things that should have been visual on the cameras that the mob crew had, but they were not. They were not there. So that new element, I don't know, is going to have Pater with it. Chris, still in Memphis, three-ways law enforcement and tells her they're on their way and tells her to go back to the house, which is kind of funny because if she was on the three-way, why would he need to tell her that they're on their way to go back to the house? I've always questioned that. So this is where you see these two big additions, the 10 p.m. noise from his room and the car driving around the neighborhood by the school before she returns home to meet the responding officers. Overlay that's my notes. So again, it goes from several searches to 3 minutes to 1 minute flat. Now the account 4 is why the story changes matter. Why people are reading Katie as suspicious. Why, and there's several points to unpack here, okay? Internal contradictions. Search durations, several searches versus 3 minutes versus a minute. Okay? Then we have presence, absence of the car search loop. Last heard alive, 10 p.m. versus 10 p.m. plus the new 10 p.m. noise. 9 p.m. versus 9 p.m. plus the 10 p.m. noise. Chris cleared language. He's literally cleared. We'll listen to that tomorrow. We'll listen to all of these things tomorrow. On one side, these evolving details erode the confidence of the parent's statements and can look like a story crafting or concealment, which is how we feel about this. On the other hand, trauma, repeat, retelling, different media formats, live stream versus edited TV, can explain some drift in time and detail. Regardless of how they feel or how we feel about Chris and Katie, a 15-year-old child is still missing. He's just turned 17. We're coming up on a 2-year milestone in February, which we are having a weeks-long event out there in Sumner County for Sebastian Rogers. So we have to keep that front and center no matter how we feel about these piece of garbage parents. What we can fairly say is the parents' public statements are not stable across interviews. The most troubling shifts are the constant shrinking of search time, the late addition of car driving and the 10 p.m. noise, and the walk back from we are cleared to we're cooperating. These inconsistencies do not prove that Katie or Chris harmed Sebastian or staged anything. Only law enforcement sees phone records, surveillance, physical evidence, and full interviews. what we can do going forward. Do new details. Keep appearing. Do the stories finally have some stability, or are they stabilizing? And the answer is no. Do they ever publicly narrow focus or explicitly clear or change or charge anyone? No. Any cooperation or conflict between their timelines and third-party evidence, such as neighbors, cameras, digital data, as this information becomes public, we have seen that. These things aren't being corroborated. They actually conflict with one another. Like I said, we're hearing that Katie took a while to come forward about her getting in her car and driving around the neighborhood. Why would she withhold that information from us? You know, we've got to look at that. Why would she withhold that information from us? What if she didn't want us to know that she left the house? What if she didn't want us to know she left the house because she took something out of the house? We're missing a kid, and she's the only person that left that house. From the time this child went into his room, should be voice on Katie's car video of hysterics. True. True. And another thing, Chris has never talked or confirmed her hysteria, and he's never confirmed hearing a thud, thump, or any other noise in the house, even though he should have theoretically been on the phone with her when she heard that. He should have heard that entire conversation, and he's never said that. He's never said that. So what the inconsistencies actually are. So the main issues are the shrinking, like I said, the shrinking search window. First, Chris says Katie searched several times before calling him. Then Katie states that she searched about 3 minutes. Then she later states that it was like 1 minute flat. These self-contradictions about how long it took before escalating. So this is problematic here. The new car search, the loop that was added. In earlier interviews, she was at the house, then calls Chris, then calls the sheriff. No mention of leaving the house. Only later in the Chronicles of Olivia interview, after calling Chris, she jumps in her car and drives around the neighborhood and by the school while hysterical. And only then did Chris three-way law enforcement and tell her to come back. This is a substantial new element, not just a nuance. The new 10 p.m. noise detail. Early on, the last contact is 9 p.m. Good night. In the Olivia interview, Katie adds about an hour later she heard him making a noise and told him to go to sleep, effectively moving the last heard alive time to around 10 p.m. Again, a late addition that extends the timeline. We've been cleared versus we've cooperated. On Dutch's, Chris claims they have been vetted, checked out, literally have been cleared with no wrongdoing. In a later TV interview, he backs off to fully cooperative without repeating the cleared claim. Law enforcement has said publicly they have not formally cleared anyone. That shift is a credibility problem for Chris and by association for the couple. Changing emphasis on what she did versus what Chris did. Chris initially frames himself as the one who called the sheriff. Katie later uses "we called" and "we three-wayed," and then in Olivia stresses Chris was the one who three-wayed police while she was driving. The basic facts can all be true, but the framing keeps moving. Varying specificity on times. The 9 p.m., midnight, 6 a.m. structure is consistent overall, but is sometimes vague. A little bit later, I went to bed, around 6. And sometimes very precise, like in the Chronicles of Olivia interview. Viewers notice when key times firm up only in later long-form interviews. Why the rise in red flags for people? In forensic interviewing, the statement analysis, late appearing details, shrinking time estimates, and omitted actions that suddenly appear later are all things that draw attention because they can indicate a few things. Memory reconstruction under pressure. People under intense stress initially give a rough sketch. Later, with more time to think and after hearing online theories, they fill in details even if they're unsure of them. That's interesting. That can look like lying even when it's partly normal human memory drift. Impression management, shorter search time, 1 minute. Then the drastic car drive can make Katie appear like a panicked, active mother with emotionally compelling on camera. Dropping the "we've been clear" language later suggests their advisors realized the claim clashed with what the sheriffs were saying and toned it down. Possible concealment or minimization. If an action is only admitted in later interviews, leaving the house in the car before police were called, analysis asks, was it left out intentionally because they felt it was incriminating, embarrassing, or hard to explain? I would think that that would be normal if you were driving around the neighborhood. I think many parents drive around the neighborhood to look for their kids. I think that's very normal. Why would that be omitted? The more crucial the omitted behavior is to the timeline, the more suspicious the omission looks. Because of these patterns, many observers read Katie, and to a degree Chris, as shaping their story over time rather than giving one stable account. That doesn't prove that they harmed Sebastian, but it does undercut trust in their statements. So I think that's what we're looking at here. It is also important to recognize benign or mixed explanations. Trauma and sleep deprivation. She is recounting the worst night of her life repeatedly on camera while sleep deprived and on medication for anxiety or depression, something many parents in these cases report even if she hasn't said explicitly. Under trauma, duration, 3 minutes, 1 minute, are often felt, not clock time. Rewording them later is common. Media format and editing. Local news, which we talked about. Local news and packages are shorter. WSMV, Fox 17 may cut or reshape answers to fit their narrative or time slots. Long-form YouTube interviews like Dutch's and Olivia's give more room, so she naturally adds detail. That difference can create apparent contradictions that are partially editorial. Law enforcement guidance. Oh, it's nice. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Phil. They state repeatedly that they cannot talk about this because of law enforcement's instructions. That can lead to selective omission early on. Location she drove, devices examined. That later gets loosened as investigations evolve. So while these explanations don't erase the contradictions, they mean inconsistencies doesn't automatically equal she's lying to cover up a crime, which you guys know my opinion on it, but I'm going to stick to the black and white here. Why Katie feels more suspicious than Chris. From a viewer's perspective, she controls the crucial window, right? So Chris is in Memphis. Everything from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. discovery is solely in Katie's hands. Any changes about that period, search duration, car drive, noises, exact times, attach to her story. Her narrative is more fluid. Chris' core beats, I was at work, she called me, I called /3-way police, stayed very similar. Katie's details expanded and shifted in multiple interviews. You guys see a theme here? She was the first one that was referring to her son as in the past tense in the first few interviews. And she, not Chris, his stayed very similar through all of these 4 interviews. But this is identifying Katie's details expanded and shifted in multiple interviews. The search time, the car drive, the 10 p.m. noise. Audiences naturally focus suspicion where the story moves the most. She is the last known adult to see him. And in any missing child case, the last caregiver gets extra scrutiny. Here, that's Katie, compounded by the evolving narrative and social media speculation about past family issues. So the suspicious feel comes from a combination of role, last with Sebastian, evolving details, choices about what to emphasize or omit, not from a single smoking gun statement, but it's not right. It's not right. So, although none of these are the proverbial smoking gun, we definitely can say our history shows us that the person that was last with the missing or deceased individual typically is the one that has harmed that individual. And before we close out the show, I would like to provide you guys some statistics, okay? Some real, very powerful, in my opinion, statistics about this case. And then I'm going to go through here and see if I can read some of your questions, take a few minutes to read some of your questions and see what you guys have to say. So, how missing child cases usually look. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, reported that more than 90% of missing child cases they handled are runaways and not abductions. In NCMEC, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, 2024 data, overall recovery was 91% of missing children reported. That's huge, 91, but that still leaves 9% missing. In 2023, about 4.1% of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children cases were family abductions. Only about 1% of these involved a non-family member taking the child. So 99.9% of these children that aren't runaways are taken by their family or caregiver. Only 1% is from a stranger danger or non-family member. Research on stereotypical non-family kidnapping, the classic stranger danger abduction scenario, found that about 40% of those cases, the child was unalived and another 4% were never recovered again. Statistically, when a child goes missing, the most common scenario are runaways or a dispute with family, not a stranger in a white van, and in a rare stranger kidnapping cases, the outcome is often very deadly. These numbers aren't about Sebastian specifically, but they explain why investigators always look hard at the family. A systematic review of child homicide studies worldwide found that parents commit about 56% of all child homicides. A U.S. analysis of the FBI data over 44 years found that family members are the most common perpetrators of homicides in children ages 0 to 12. Acquaintances become more common than older teens. Local studies echo patterns. In Los Angeles County, nearly 1,000 children were killed by a parent's partner, or other family caretaker over 3 decades. Child victims were also more likely to be killed by a parent than extended family or non-related caregiver. Across large studies, most young children who are killed by someone in their family, not a stranger. One major reason law enforcement scrutinizes caregivers so closely in cases like Sebastian. Non-family abductions and lethality. A national study of non-family child abductions reported among 581 known outcome cases, About 48% of the victims were found alive, and 52% were found dead or presumed dead. So, in a study, when there's non family abductions, about half of them are murdered. In stereotypical kidnappings, about 40% of the victims were killed and another 4% never recovered. In roughly 88% of those cases, a motive was sexual in nature, especially when the victim was post-pubescent girl. Takeaway is when a child is truly taken by a non-family offender, it's usually for sexual purposes, and the odds of survival drop to a coin flip in the available research. So about 50%. So really, literally a coin toss. That's concerning. Now, this one's a little bit different because this is related to autism, wandering, drowning risks. Because Sebastian is autistic, you can also highlight how dangerous it is for them to wander on their own, which, honestly, we've learned is not Sebastian. He's not a wanderer. He's not an eloper. He's not a runner. The Autism Society notes that children with autism are estimated to be 4 times more likely to wander than their peers and 160 times more likely to drown. Again, these are not the statistics for Sebastian specifically. One Autism Safe review found 91% of deaths among autistic children 14 and under were due to drowning. So we guys understand why law enforcement went to the waterways. But again, that's not Sebastian, and somebody should have let them know he would not be there. The National Autism Association tracked a record of 82 fatalities in 2024 among autistic children who wandered. 75 of those, 82 died by drowning. A Florida review found that 2000 to 2017 wandering was the activity leading to drowning in 73 of the autistic children's cases. For autistic children who go missing, water is the number one threat. We know that water is the number one threat because 90% of all these deaths are from children that wander and drown. Again, that's not Sebastian's case. That's not Sebastian's case. I think that's about it. Because I believe that's the statistics about law enforcement on both sides, whether or not that child was harmed accidentally, wandering off, getting into the water, dying that way, or at the hands of his parents. You know, that's where we're at in this case. And with Katie's past issues and Chris's past issues and hearing about their marital problems and realizing there was an ultimatum made and Chris never returned home again, it sounded like they were separating and dividing assets and they were really going to just be done. And we didn't find that out until much later into the case, how bad their relationship truly was between Chris and Katie. But I did find it very odd that we learned there was an ultimatum had and he never came back to the house again. That he wanted Katie to feel what it felt like to deal with the house by herself, because he told her, from what I heard, he told her that she'd never be able to make it in that house without him. She'd never be able to make it in that house without him. So, again, guys, I hope you found some value in this live. If you did, please consider giving me a thumbs up and clipping it or sharing it, right? Make sure that we're getting this stuff out here. We're coming up on Sebastian's 2-year milestone, and he has not been found. And we're going to be doing an event, a weeks-long event out in Sumner County, and we want everybody. We want at least 100 bodies to fill up the streets and line up the streets on his 2-year milestone. We are coming out with love in our hearts. We're coming out to show up in force and let the community know that we still have a missing child. We need them to honk for them. We need them to pray for them. We need them to come out and support what we're doing so we can make waves. We need to make waves. We need to stand up and speak up and really, really, really impress upon the decision makers of that community that this boy needs to be found. They have not finished their job. They need to get back out there. They need to get out there in those woods, and they need to find Sebastian Rogers. He's out there somewhere. He's out there somewhere. My biggest concern is that Chris and Katie have literally been all over the country since this child disappeared, and that scares the shit out of me. That literally scares the shit out of me, because it was just a dumb luck that Melody Buzzard was found, you know? So again, hindsight, thank you for your work. Thank you for sending me the information. Guys, we will be able to plug in the new interview. I'll plug it in the morning. I don't know if we're going to, bring the show. We're going to start out with Sebastian. We're probably going to start out with our normal breaking news and keep Sebastian for later in the afternoon as we're, really, really honing in on this. I think these reports, plugging this information in is really, clearing out the noise. There were so many things that I think we were focusing on that we shouldn't have been focusing on. And now we're kind of redirecting those focus points to now more structured focus for focal points. Now we know that this doesn't make sense. We need to start honing in on this and start working on getting information for this. I think by the time we're done with this, we're going to have a checklist of what we need to prove, what we need to have, and we can start working on, finding that information. First is foremost, we need to find Sebastian Rogers. The problem is nobody's looking for him, right? Nobody's looking for him. Chris and Katie have never looked for him. His father has done everything he can. We're all leaning on law enforcement, and every time we bring law enforcement or like the U.S. Marshals or Chris McDonough or anything, and we suggest anything, they turn it down. They are just unwilling to do anything to advance this case, and I don't understand why. I don't understand why. He needs help. We need law enforcement to search for Sebastian. And right now, what they're doing inside their office is not finding Sebastian, okay? At this point, guys, we're at the 2-year milestone. Any type of forensics they should have back, any type of reports they should have back, they should have something to cross. They should have something that they could say, oh, we need to go out here and do another check. And out of bull crap, right? Just throw it up in the air, right? At the end of the day, why not just go back over the stuff you did just to make sure you didn't miss anything? But no, nothing. This feels, you know what this feels like? This feels like Gilgo Beach back when Shannon Gilbert disappeared. And they had that corrupt police commissioner that was just, hiring prostitute, just doing all kinds of bad policing, using his position of authority and stuff like that. He was ultimately indicted. But, it just gives me that kind of vibe. I'm sorry, it just gives me that kind of vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like, why are you not? You're telling everybody you're not going to stop until all of the stones have been turned over. But we've had 4 different either nonprofits or federal agencies offer to assist, and they turned that assistance down. How do you think that makes Seth feel? How do we make them do something? We show up in force. We show them how important this child is to a lot of us. When you move, you have to move them. Okay? These are stubborn, arrogant. They think they piss further than we piss people. Okay? There's nothing we can do about that. The only way you can fix that is pressure. Right? They want to please you because they're sick and tired of dealing with you. That's the kind of shit we want rolling. We want to do it with a smile on our face, but that's where we want to be the ball on the ass of a politician in Sumner County with some decision-making power. That's what we want. That's what we want. I'm gonna be freezing my rear end off all week, right? If you're coming out all week, bring a chair. Bring a chair and a sign. I'm a little I'm a little animated when I'm out there working. I just want to let you guys know. And we got a laundry list of grievances. So I got plenty to talk about. Okay? I got a week's worth. I got a week's worth. I'm just saying. Have you looked at my playlist for Sebastian? Like, we got thousands of hours for Sebastian, okay? Like, we ain't playing when we go out. I'm going to be out there February 23rd through the 27th. The main event is on February 26th. It's when we want, everybody out there. Oh, it looks like I kicked I must have kicked my screen. I got a little green screen issue here. Happy New Year's! Yes! All of my beautiful people! Happy New Year! Woo-hoo-hoo! Don't forget the snacks. Oh, good gracious, guys. It has been great. This has been, I really do feel like this is really bringing clarity. I like the reports I'm getting. I like how specific they are. I like that they're bringing in, like if I wanted to pull it up and just hear it for ourselves, that gives me the timestamps in there. Like, it's really good. So you guys, I see you guys all coming in here, Grave Prime. You guys are more than welcome to use my stuff, clip it, use it, whatever, do whatever you need to do. But get it out there because this is working. I think this is really clarifying. I don't know any other word to use than clarifying. I feel like this is clarifying. And then once we plug in the Dutch's second interview into the system and start, we still have a big one. We haven't even I haven't even plugged in Smiley Stories World. That one and the Web Sleuths one. Those are going to be pretty interesting when we get those plugged into the system and what those might produce. Because remember, after this, we don't hear much from Katie anymore. Okay? Everything from this point forward, I think after Chronicles of Olivia is just straight Chris. It's just straight Chris. I think that at some point he realized, because, now that we're listening to this, and the reports are coming out the way they're coming out, Chris was not using the past tense. Katie was. Katie's story was the one changing. Chris's story was fairly consistent. That really is pretty interesting findings. Because a lot of us were looking at Chris. Like, I'm starting to, Chris might be in a funky predicament where he's just trying to protect his wife because she went batshit crazy and offed her kid. Aw, Happy New Year's, guys. I love it. Do we know for sure that Katie pled the fifth? Yeah. We know she's got an attorney and she pled the fifth. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I confirmed that with a source very close to the case. So, sources very close to the case, I should say. There was multiple sources, but it didn't come from an article or directly out of the mouths of law enforcement, but I don't know. All right, guys, I'm exhausted. I've had a kind of a lazy day, and then I set this because I didn't feel like doing my breaking news. I knew that Camilla When we were going out yesterday, Karen was talking, she put it in the chat, and I called her after, but I had already closed out the show. I couldn't get it back on, or stop what I had done. So we just, decided we'd wait until this morning, but it was cold this morning, and I already forewarned you that we weren't going to be doing a show until later this afternoon. And then I was still planning on doing it, but then I got, because you know how the lazy gets. You get a little lazy. I'm in my zone. I'm doing my political stuff. You guys saw that I got some videos out. I was in the zone. I got sidetracked. Next thing you know, it's like 3:30, and it's like, well, crap, if I do a live now, then, this live's not going to get the, do the notification. It's like this racket you got to go through. You got to go through a freaking formulation in your brain to find out if you can go live on YouTube. Trust me, it's just like that. Me on TikTok, it's not like that. If I wanted to go live, if I wanted to start a live right now, I'd go live. 300 or 400 people would show up. If I dropped it down, downloaded it, and decided, oh, I forgot this, or I want to talk about another case, I can immediately go live, and it'll put me right into the live for you stuff, and I could get another 200 or 300 people. It's crazy here. I don't know why they limit you on stuff, but they do. They throttle you. They throttle you on YouTube. I don't know why, but they do. Anyways, that's just how the cookie crumbled today, and I realized it's like the last day of the year. I worked my ass off this year. I've had an up and down year. It's been partially shitty, partially good, but it's just like, today's like the last day, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I don't feel like doing shit, right? I came in here and I worked in the morning for a little bit. I worked a little in the afternoon, and I worked like another 2 hours before this show started to make sure I had everything plugged in. And well, to be honest with you, I was just trying to get I was hoping to redo the reports, but I realized my transcript still wasn't ready yet, so it kind of sucked. So I was hoping to get I'd like to have had all of them, because the transcript, the second interview on Duchess, it had some changes too, and it was the one right before Chronicles of Olivia. So I'd really would have liked to have heard those changes in those reports as well. So we're going to have to redo the reports once I plug in the information tomorrow. So we're going to go over this information again with the new plug. We're probably not going to stay on the case tomorrow, but for an hour, because I'm going to have to go through different other stuff that I've got to decide what's going to be put in here, or what is our next project for this database. And like I said, once we get it all built, it'll be there. I can pull a timeline. I can pull this. I can pull excerpts. I can, we'll know exactly right where this is in this interview, or right where that is in that interview. We will really have some true receipts, and we'll need to plug in. So if anybody is still doing the Excel spreadsheet of all the interviews, including the new ones they've done on all those hate channels at the end of 2024 and all through 2025, we need all those plugged in as well. So if somebody has that, please send it to me at bullhornbetty@gmail.com, because I need the 2024 and 2025 interviews. Happy New Year and happy 250th anniversary of America! Welcome to the Twilight Zone. This is the new year, 2026. Blah, blah, blah. My pretty. Okay, you guys go enjoy the festivities. Rock it out with your coffee beans out. Don't forget to be fearless. If you see something, say something. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And until next time, please be safe, but more importantly, kind to one another. Guys, thank you all for being here. God bless you, and God bless America.